Ask Alec.
What's up, guys? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome back to an episode of Ask Alec. Today's question comes from Jeff, one of my readers, who wants to know about etiquette in poker, specifically with respect to who shows their cards first at the poker table. So he writes into me and he says, look, to me, etiquette is following the rules. If you bet and someone calls you, you as the bettor show your cards first. In a game of information, we have all called a bet, knowing we had a losing hand, but we're calling for information only. Alec, what do you think about this? I feel a lot of pressure sometimes where he says, I think he says like he feels a lot of pressure sometimes in situations where he's encouraged to show, but he doesn't want to show, and he's asking my opinion on the situation. Jeff, great question. I definitely deal with this a lot at the poker table, and while I agree totally that you are in the right, good etiquette is to follow the rules, there are times when you're forced into awkward situations. So I think there's two different ways that I approach who shows their cards first, and I'd like to talk a little bit about both and how you can make sure that you're keeping the spirit of the game alive while not getting completely free-rolled on really valuable information, like you said. So the first is against other fellow pros or people that take the game seriously or people that are trying to get an edge against me. So if I'm playing against someone that's, a good recreational player or a regular or a pro or aspiring professional, someone that's going to treat me the same way I'm going to expect to treat them, I'm definitely not giving away anything. If it's their turn to show on the river, they know the rules as much as me. We're both there to get an edge against each other. We're both trying to see each other's cards. We're both playing the game very fairly, but at the same time, we're both competing on a very high level and trying to get the best of each other. If it goes check on the river and I think I have the winner, if they're like, I missed, I'm going to say, you can show or muck very politely. I'm very polite at the table. I think I'm a very nice guy. But at the same time, I'm not just going to give them a free roll and show them my cards, because why would I do that? That's just stupid. They wouldn't do that to me. I would never expect them to do that to me. And I really don't even want them to do that to me. It's just like, why would they give away an edge like that? It just seems silly to me. It seems like against the point of the game when you're playing against pros whom you're competing on the same level against. So if it's obvious they missed, I might say, hey, I have you beat. Like, let's say they go on the river and I call and they're bluffing. I might say, I call, I got you. And they're like, oh, I missed. I'm like, oh, I got you, show or muck. So I'm not slow rolling them. I don't want to give the impression that like I call on the river with aces full and I'm like sitting there waiting for them to show their hand, letting them think they have the best hand. I might call and be like, I got you, or snap call and throw the money in so that they know that they're probably beat. But at the same time, if they're like want to try and see my cards for free, I'll be like, look, show or muck, I probably have you. I'm very nice about it. The same is true in all-in situations. If I'm the one that called the all-in, it's their turn to show first. If I flop top set, it's usually customary to show. I'll be like, hey, I got you, but I won't say exactly what I have. And I think that's very, very fair. Some people don't even go as far to not slow roll you, intentionally kind of give you insight into what they have. I know players that do that against me in huge pots in Macau. It's happened many times. I'm not offended at all. It's totally their right to see my hand first. Information's super valuable, and it's important. Like, am I going all in with ace-5 suited as a bluff, or do I have two kings? Like, it's just so important to know how I'm going to play against them, and they put in 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 against me. They deserve to see my cards if they're in position. That's part of the game. So against pros, you should play hardball, totally fair game. You could sort of bend the rules a little bit and try and give them insight or offer them kind ways to show them that you're going to enforce these rules. But at the same time, I feel like there's way too much of that going on at the table. I'm guilty of this sometimes too, where I say I missed, and there's always this apprehension about showing your cards, or you just kind of want to get the hand over quickly. But I never will fault any of you guys. You're ever at the table against me and you say, look, you missed, it's your turn to show or muck. I will definitely totally respect that, and I expect you guys to do that to me. I'm doing that to you all day, so bring it. Now, there's other situations where you're in this spot and you technically could be right, but at the end of the day, you don't want to die being right, because there's some things that go beyond just being correct in poker. Now, I'm talking mainly about the times that you're playing against players that aren't necessarily there to gain every single edge. You're playing against an amateur, you're playing against someone that's maybe not even aware of these rules, doesn't really think about the rules. He's there to have fun, he's a VIP, he's your customer. However you want to look at it. In spots like that, sure, you can like call the river with the nuts against them and be like, yeah, your turn to show, and then they show a hand or a bluff, and then you flip over the nuts. You're correct to do that. You're legally correct, but it's not something I would ever do. In fact, I would just, go as so far to show my cards and not even care if they ever show me. And the reason is because, your edge against these players is huge. And you seeing their cards, sure, it's going to help you a little bit, but them seeing your cards isn't really going to hurt you that much. Now, I understand you're going to show the rest of the table your cards as well, but you have to realize how you play against the VIP is totally different than how you're going to play against another pro. So if a pro tries to use that information and say, oh, this guy plays the hand this way, and he thinks you're going to do that against the pro or himself, it's totally wrong, because you're going to adjust your game plan a complete 180 versus a complete maniac amateur and a really good solid type professional. You're just going to have different game plans. So information doesn't apply, it doesn't really give away anything to anyone else as much. And for sure, the VIP isn't going to use the information and adjust to you next time. He might use the information incorrectly. He might not even think about it. He might not have any idea what's going on. My main goal, though, in spots like these is to be very humble and keep in mind what makes a poker game, what makes me have a job, and what my purpose is at the poker table. My job isn't to necessarily win the most money. That's sort of a product of doing my job correctly. I think my job mostly is to entertain people and have a good time at the table and create a positive environment. So your job as a professional should be tantamount to what the house does as the casino. Their job isn't to create, sure, they create a game where they have an edge like roulette, but their main job is to bring in clientele and keep them entertained and make them happy while losing. So you're going to beat an amateur player in the long term if you're a pro. You want to make them that experience as good as possible. Maybe they're going to beat you too. Who knows, right? Maybe some of the amateurs are better than you. I don't know. But at the same time, you want to create a positive environment at the poker table. I want to do that regardless of who I'm playing against, even if I'm playing against all pros that are better than me. I don't really care. I want to be in a positive space. I want my universe to be a positive place. I like positivity. So if a guy is super tilted and pissed and he's like, oh, I missed, and he's about to throw his cards at the dealer and walk out of the room, I'm not going to be like, sir, technically the rule is you're out of position. You could show or muck. Who does that? Yes, I'm going to gain a little bit of an edge, but I'm going to make enough money at the table. Anyway, I'm just going to be like, look, dude, I got you. Here's my hand, right? And I'm just going to show him. I do all sorts of stuff like that all the time. Like if he checks the river and it's on me, I might just flip over my hand. Or if he mucks and he's like, what do you have? I might just throw my cards to him and let him see my hand and not let anybody else see. Just because that's part of having fun at the table. Like, yeah, sure, I'm giving away a couple dollars, but at the end of the day, poker's been done well to me. It hasn't really cost me that much money in my life so far. At least if it has, I haven't noticed. And I don't really care. I'm there to have fun. I want to create a fun environment. And I'm trying to limit the tilt that someone's going to experience that's clearly there to have a good time as much as possible. And if that means I have to show my hand ahead of time, so. So there's one other situation I'd like to discuss quickly, and that's all-in scenarios. Now, there are times when you're all in, and it's almost a little bit more socially awkward to not turn over your hand, right? Like, let's say you're all in with aces, and like, it's clear the guy tank calls it off. It's obvious you have the best hand, right? Not obviously because he tank called, he has a weak hand. He's like debating whether or not to call, but you know that you have the best hand pre-flop. So it's a time where you're generally sure, even if you don't have aces, maybe you have kings and he tanks, or queens and he tanks forever. You know you have the best hand. So it's sort of like you want to tell him, hey, look, I got you. But at the same time, you don't want him to have a free roll to call it all in with like whatever he has, any two cards, and then get to see your hand for free and you not to get to see his, because at the same time you're like, shit, I want to know what this guy called me with. Did he call me with, was he debating with two jacks, or was he debating with like ace-5 suited or 7-8 suited or pocket fives? It's totally different, and that information's super important in massive pots. So what I might do is, if it's his turn to show first, but I have him be like, hey, look, I got you, but do you want to both show? Because, he's going to know, you're going to say him, hey, look, it's your turn to show first. I have you, let's both show, it'll be more fun. And you try and create an environment where you're not on the river and you're not already all in, the card is run out, and then you're sort of like hemming and hawing and waiting for him to show, and then not really slow rolling him, but at the same time, it's less fun of an environment for the VIP or for anyone that you're all in against. So that's something that I've tried that's worked well for me. Certainly a lot of times at the high games, you end up running it twice, and people sort of ask what each other have so they know what their equity is, especially if you're all in on like the turn. It's generally customary for both people to show their hand if you're going to run it twice or 3 times so people can kind of see the equities. That's another reasonable spot to do it as well. But in short, basically if I'm all in a spot like that, and it's clearly someone that's not going to want to show, it's a VIP, I'm going to try to encourage them to show first, because I'm going to have to show anyway, most likely, if I have the best hand. And this way I'm not getting free rolled, but at the same time I'm creating a more positive environment, letting them know, hey, look, it's your turn to show. Let's both show. It'll be fun. So that's a little bit about my thoughts on the subject. I'd love to hear yours. I know this is controversial. I'm sure you guys have had a lot of interesting situations. Leave me a comment below and let me know 2 things. 1 is what you think on the subject, and 2, what's the most interesting story that you have about showing cards. If you guys got free rolled in a huge pot, or do you always show first? Let me know what you guys do and your thoughts in a comment below. I definitely read through all these. I answer most of them, and I would greatly appreciate your insight. That's it for this episode of Ask Alec. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time on the channel. Thanks for watching.